Hey, what's going on, everybody? Hope you're doing well. Today I'm showing you the second of 4 avatar custom picture frames that I made for a customer. Today we're doing Water Tribe. Before we get started, I wanted to thank Michael Matsumoto again. He's the artist of these pieces. He allowed me to use his artwork in my videos, so I wanted to give him a shout out. Go visit him over at matsumotoart.com or over on Instagram at matsumoto_art. This frame is made completely out of walnut, but out of 2 different varieties. The top and bottom pieces are made from black walnut, and the left and right pieces are made from claro walnut. I'm just using simple lap joint construction again on this frame. So once I have them all blanked out and cut down to size, I start marking out where the dados are going to go on the top and bottom pieces. Welcome back to the table saw sled camera. This should look a little familiar to you. This is where I'm setting the depth of my dado cuts to the thickness of those longer sideboards. Then once we're set up with a stop block, I just cut the outside and the inside for each dado, and then I just carve out the middle. So this time around, once the dados were cut, instead of using a chisel to carve out what was left, I came in with a flat router bit and I dropped everything down at the exact depth that I needed, and it was a lot more accurate. So I knew I couldn't rely as much on color for this frame, since finding cooler colors in wood species is a little difficult. There is some purple and some gray in the claro walnut, but instead what I tried to do is rely more on a profile that I cut into the top and bottom pieces to sort of resemble kind of like a wave pattern. So this is where I'm marking out those profiles, and then I cut them all out on the bandsaw. Then at this point, I just do another dry fit, and then I just check everything for square, and then after that, I come in with my marking knife and make a little knife nick right where the 2 intersecting lines are, just so I know exactly where to put the pieces back together when it's time to glue them up. After that was done, I knew I wanted to do some kind of a profile on the ends of each of these longer pieces, because they're going to be protruding past the frame. So my creative director, also known as my wife, had suggested the shape that I use for the bottom left and the top right. I knew I didn't want to make them all the same, so I went with sort of a diagonal arrangement where the bottom right and the top left match each other, and vice versa, the bottom left and the top right will match. I don't know what the deal is with this angle, but I can't seem to get it right, so my apologies again. I'll figure it out eventually. But I'm just setting up here just to give the ends a little bit of a round over. This is the short ends, the top and bottom pieces of the black walnut, and I'm just using my number 4 smoothing plane right here. Before I decided to do my glue up, I wanted to pre-drill all the holes so that everything was already set and aligned, so that all I'd need to do was just drive a screw and it would sync up. So first I use a smaller bit to actually drill the screw hole itself, and then I come back in with a larger bit to start the hole that I'm going to use for the square plug that I'm going to carve out after that. All of the preparation made the glue up a lot less stressful. I didn't want to have to worry about anything, so that was nice. But at this point, just added glue to each joint, drove in the screws, and then let it set overnight. So once the frame was all cured up and solid, I threw my rabbeting bit into my router and set for a 3/8 depth, 3/8 wide rabbet around the whole inside of the frame. like last frame, I just had to come in with a chisel and carve out what was left in the corners. So at this point, the frame is basically done. All I need to do now is cut a square strip off of this block of Claro walnut so I can make some square plugs for those screw holes. Once I had my square peg all cut down, I'm just using it to trace around the hole that I made so that I can cut a section off of this peg and then fashion it into a square plug for this hole. To shape each plug, I just put the peg into my vise and then I rounded over the end and sanded it down. Once it was ready, I just cut it off at the length that I needed and then just repeated the process 3 times. Once I had all the plugs cut, then I just glued them in using some CA glue and then just kept a clamp on them for a couple minutes. So I start my finish like I usually do. Just a small section of tack cloth to get all the residual dust off. I recommend you do the same. It does make a difference, in my opinion. And then I just move on to my tried and true finish that I almost always use, which is 2 to 3 coats of blonde shellac. This is the moment of truth. It's pretty much the same as last time. So I just drop in a clean pane of glass, then the artwork, and then a sheet of cardboard just to give it a little bit of rigidity. And then I come in afterwards with that point shooter that I showed you in the first video, and then just fire in a bunch of fasteners to make sure it's all snugged up tight. So this was actually a step that I forgot to put in the first video. I did the same thing on the first frame, but I forgot to show it. So I'm going to show it here. This is where I put in a dust cover on the back. So I'm just using, it's literally just called dust cover paper. I'm just using spray-on adhesive. I put a layer onto the paper itself and then I drop the frame onto it and then cut a rough shape out of there so I can move it off of the sheet of paper. And then I just trim it along the frame on the back. So once the dust cover was on, this is when I add the hardware. And again, I did this on the first frame, but I just didn't show it. So this is the same for all of them, but all I'm doing here is I'm pre-drilling some screw holes. I screw in a couple of D-rings and then I just weave in the picture frame wire, and then you just fasten it with a ferrule on the other side. If you like that picture frame build, do me a favor and give me a like. And make sure you check out the whole series because this is only one of 4, so I'll make sure I link to one of those in the end screen coming up. Thanks for watching as always, make some cool stuff, and I will see you on the next one.